Hey, happy Friday, everybody. It's time for Hollywood Breaks. It's so good to be with you again. We took a break last week for Thanksgiving, so it's good to be back. And Keith, I'm super excited about this week because one of our predictions that we had just a few months ago has come true with HBO Max, but I'm going to leave that for later. Let's just start with hello and welcome to Friday. We'll get to the juicy stuff in a little bit.
Yeah, well, welcome. Yeah, it's great to be back with you after a week off. Hope you had a nice Thanksgiving.
I did have a good Thanksgiving. I actually went
Nice.
to Los Angeles so I get some of that Hollywood mojo into
Oh,
my
you
body.
traveled?
Yes, yeah, I know. I'm living
Anthony
dangerously.
Fauci's going to show up at your door. You're going to be in trouble.
You know what? I figure I can quarantine. I've been saying this whole time. I can quarantine at 80 miles an hour down I-5 just fine. So I get my family.
That's true.
We just stay in this, like in the house or in the car. We're just travel down there and get back
Yeah,
out of the house over there on the other side.
there you
It's
go. That's how
fine.
you do it.
But the weather was beautiful. The food was great. So happy Thanksgiving to you too. Hope it was well.
Yeah, well. I mean, unfortunately, we had to We were going to go up to Maine, and unfortunately, we had to scuttle those plans because there's a lot of testing involved to come back. So we just decided to stay here. So it's just my immediate family in the house. We didn't involve any outsiders. So it was a small, intimate Thanksgiving for sure.
Plus, if you went to Maine, you would have to load up all those movie posters to bring with you. So you had a movie poster behind you.
That's true. I would have had to bring a couple for sure. Yeah, you're right. How would I do
Well,
that?
speaking of which, I see the Logan poster behind your shoulder.
Yes,
That's the
very cool image. This movie I actually worked on a little bit before I left Fox. Um, and this beautiful piece of art was done by Kenny Gravlis, who is a phenomenal artist when it comes to movie posters. And this was his image, and I think it encapsulates the movie quite well, and it's really cool. And I made sure to put in my request before I left that whenever the key art was done, I wanted a copy. And luckily, my request was honored. So
That's wonderful.
I'm able to bring it to you all today.
You know what? As you get near the end of your reserve of movie posters in like 3 years
Tim, it's not going to happen.
we can
Oh,
we might be able to reach out to some of these artists and see if we can get updates on some of their latest work. Though we might be able to
yeah.
add to your.
I mean, I have literally 6 poster tubes in my closet full of posters. So that's to give you a sense of how many episodes we're gonna need to do before we get through.
Yeah. Do you have to iron them out?
Yeah, they're all full of posters. I'm telling you. I mean, like 10 years of collecting movie posters. I mean, come on.
I'll send you some of mine before you run
Okay.
out.
Yeah. Mix it up a little bit.
All right. Well, let me before actually we dive into the juicy stuff with HBO Max, because again, I swear we predicted this, and here it goes.
And indeed it is juicy. I will say that for sure.
Before we go, I have to make fun of Discovery Plus. I mean, honestly, that's the breakthrough brand. They're going to add a plus to the end of it.
Well, that's the thing now. It's like, you just throw a plus on it. I mean, or Max.
Yeah, or Max.
That's all you can do. I mean, that's apparently what the going thing is. Like, I think it's a little, not like, it showcases a little lack of creativity personally, but
what's the marketing department doing? I mean, they have the word discovery to work with. They could, I mean, like they could do so many great things with that word.
It's probably fear going far from the brand.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the challenges like Peacock had launching, if you just stick to and everyone looks at Disney Plus, and they're the gold standard now, and they knocked it out of the park as far as their launch goes. So everyone's like, "Whoa, look what Disney did!" So we're just going to throw a plus on ours. We don't want to disturb the brand. And interesting, if you look at the logo of Discovery Plus, it's very not Discovery. I mean, I think it's a little colorful, and so it doesn't look like the Discovery brand, which is the giant globe with the D around it. And
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't a part of any of those conversations, although I'd be curious to be a fly on the wall during sort of the discovery phase.
Well, I'll tell you, if it works, this program is going to be called RevThink Plus instead of.
Please God, no. You could do like a riff version where we do like a special episode where we do a RevThink Plus, brought to you by RevThink Plus.
Right.
The new OTT service.
That's right. This is it. All OTT all the time. Well,
Although I will say, apparently they're going to have quite a library to launch with. So, I mean,
I want to say
apparently
like
they're
an
going to have the
interesting
most
idea, like
shows
they're
out of,
just producing, it's like they're just producing shows for Discovery Plus, almost skipping the cable marketplace
and
completely.
a lot of them, and a lot of them are more like reality TV based, so the budgets are lower and they can turn them around quicker.
Yeah.
So apparently they have quite a library to launch with, and some of the most original shows out of any of their streamers. So, and they've got, loyal followers. My wife loves watching, most of those shows, and Chip and Joanna Gaines are very popular, and I know a lot of their shows are going to be there too. So I think they're gonna do fairly well when they actually launch. And from what I understand, they're mimicking a pricing model similar to Peacock, where you can have it's like a $4.99 with commercials, $6.99 premium with no commercials. So they give you the option. I don't know if there'll be a free version like Peacock, but it'll be interesting to see how they do. I mean, another player enters the field, and let's see how many. I think you'll start to see some churn in terms of how many services people are willing to hold at any given time.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because again, it always comes back to that what to watch issue, like to just add more stuff into that marketplace, and then navigation tools really aren't helping that. But I was going to say, Discovery, this isn't anything new for Discovery. They've been doing online distribution for years. I know on the side, I own a zipline company, ziplinegear.com, if you want to get a Christmas present for your kids. But we provide ziplines for some HGTV shows, Treehouse Masters and such. And they, honestly pushed online as much as they pushed, a broadcast for many years. So I'm going to guess some of that practice is going to fit really well into their OTT strategy and distribution, because they've had a practice of low end, low budget content straight to consumer without having to use the cable. So pretty exciting.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it's another player in the field, and Paramount Plus on deck too. So who knows? I mean, it's just amazing.
Paramount Plus. So Droga 5, that's what they came up with. Like,
apparently,
we'll add a plus. It's almost like voting for like prom queen and king. It's like, well, it's popular, so therefore let's vote for the popular plus sign.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone Droga 5. I don't want to get get a bunch of hate mail on us.
Yeah, don't get in trouble, Tim. They're gonna hunt you down. They're probably listening right now. You're in trouble.
I'll never be the Droga 6. I'll never be the 6th one.
Yeah, you're not gonna be the 6th man of the Droga 5 team.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the big stuff here.
Yep.
HBO Max becomes the primary distribution for WarnerMedia. Clearly, the stuff that we saw early on in the year, where HBO Max just couldn't even get out of the gate. It was a big cluster. We saw that big shakeup. Finally, they put their money where their mouth is and said, we're going to go straight distribution on HBO. Really, you called this, Keith. You really did, because when they shook up that whole thing with HBO Max, you could tell that they were prioritizing and the importance of HBO Max as the brand and making sure it was going to get what they wanted to. And they put the theatrical people up there as primary marketing holders. And it happened. You totally called it. Boom goes the Max, man.
Boom goes the Max. Yeah, it is quite a seismic decision in the industry as a whole. It'll be interesting to see some of the results of all of this. It's definitely a blow to the exhibitors for sure. I think there are a lot of factors that went into this decision. I think the fact that Jason Kilar comes from sort of that tech background, and tech is, all about failing quickly. So I think he just was like, you know what, this is what we're doing. It's just, he just basically made the decision. I think he got the support of John Stankey at AT&T, because they need their stock to start bouncing up, because they have a truckload of debt from all the purchases they've made over the last few years that they've got to bring down. And what does Wall Street love right now? Streaming. They love streaming. And HBO Max just didn't have the launch that it needed to. And I think this is their way of trying to goose some viewers to get on the platform. And, listen, for consumers, it's great. I mean, we get an entire slate of really big films for free. I mean, most people, I'm an HBO Max subscriber. I'm going to be able to watch all these from the comfort of my own home, not have to worry about getting a babysitter for my kids. And the flip side of it, though, is look at the AMCs and the Regals of the world. Like, this is a huge blow for them. An entire year of some, like Matrix 4, which was definitely going to have some buzz behind it. King Kong versus Godzilla. There are a lot of titles that they have coming out that we're definitely going to potentially bring butts back to the theaters. But I think WarnerMedia was just like, you know what? We can't play this game where we, hem and haw about whether or not we're going to release it. And I also think this is clearly a sign that Tenet was, as we've guessed, a failure.
Yeah.
So they just couldn't risk another Tenet on their hands. So they were like, we just need to get it all out as quickly as possible. The one last point I'll make, and then I'll shut up. So hog all the air.
What you're here for, actually.
I would not want to be on the Warner Brothers side today. I wouldn't want to be Toby Emmerich or Carolyn Blackwood or any of those guys taking the calls from producers, directors, talent, all who are, I'm almost positive, quite furious about this. It seems to me, just reading between the lines, there wasn't a lot of communication from WarnerMedia to talent, to the people who worked on the film. And for some of these directors, like, that's their dream, to get the movie in theaters, to be seen on the brink. That's still going to be a possibility. But to imagine that if it's on HBO Max for 31 days and while it's in theaters at the same time, you got to imagine that most people are going to watch it from home. And I think that's going to be a big thing. And, as we've talked about, this business is based a lot on relationships. And I think Warner Brothers in particular is going to have a lot of work to do in the next few months in terms of rebuilding a lot of relationships in Hollywood after this huge decision.
I almost wish we had Robin on, because I'm sure she can give us some of that creative angles, insight on what this does to change. Because, a lot of people are building their creative careers based on these deals, leverage, and even the movies that they put on their slate years ago. And some of that really has like an appeal when it's theatrical distribution. When it goes straight to video, I'm not going to say that this is exactly straight to video, but it sure does feel like it. Straight to video, you don't get the same metrics of gain, box office dollars, those kind of traditional ways of monitoring and knowing success. We're not going to have that at all for this slate of films. But going back to the distribution issues and exhibitor issues, I do think this also just kind of makes clear that Warner Brothers specifically now is saying, we don't think theaters are going to actually open in 2021. We're going to deal with another year of kind of BS, not having people in the seats and shutdowns and so on.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, I think this decision definitely showcases that they believe that this next year is just going to basically be a wash as far as theatrical movie going is concerned. I mean, everyone's excited. There's a vaccine. It's on the cusp of approval. It was just approved in the UK. But as someone pointed out to me not too long ago, there's a difference between vaccines and vaccinations. So how many people are actually going to get the vaccine? And once they have it, how confident are they going to be that other people have it, that they're going to be comfortable enough going to a theater in a crowded room with a bunch of other people? That remains to be seen. And, with a lot of these titles disappearing, I think a lot of the other studios are going to start taking a look. Disney in particular are going to start taking a look about where they think they're going to be, and they might start pushing more titles on Disney Plus. I will say Universal seems to be the only studio at this point who's really engaging with the exhibitors to try to figure out a plan to make sure they make it through 2021.
Yeah.
And I applaud them for that. But at the same time, it's definitely going to be a rough go. I think 2021 is going to be as rocky, if not more so, than 2020 was.
Yeah, I'll say, like, it's obviously coming to a head that way. And I'll say, as a businessman, as an investor, there's probably something really smart about Warner Brothers kind of just recognizing and saying, hey, we got to stay in business. We got to have our priorities first. We recognize there are some short-term hits here, but the long-term of staying viable as a business and staying in the movie industry, this is what's going on. It's not their fault that the world is being crazy about the COVID virus, and they're going to stay in business and do it. So
listen, I think, Rob and I, when she was on, we talked a little bit about the slow pace, the snail nature of the industry, and how sometimes it just takes forever to make just tough decisions. So I applaud WarnerMedia for making this decision and just saying, this is what we have to do. This is what we need to do to remain a viable business. if in the end it pays off, it'll look like the most genius move since the days of the old movie moguls. So, that's definitely something that I think we have to keep in consideration. This could end up being a huge play for them. Now, the argument is going to come from the more traditionalists that they're leaving a lot of money on the table because of the potential to make a ton of money theatrically. But you can't delay release for another year. You can't keep just pushing off the releases. Now,
Yeah.
another thing that just popped into my head is, let's talk about Sony. Sony made the bet that 2020 was going to be a wash, and they pushed everything to 2021. Now it looks like we're probably looking at least until end of summer, beginning of fall, before everything starts to return to normal. If everything in the terms of the vaccination and the distributions go according to plan, which there'll probably be hiccups for sure. So we're looking at fall probably before everything, like theaters are really, everything's back to normal, everything's open. And that's most of the year. So what's Sony going to do now? So I think
and the
trying to
backlog
figure
of
out,
films, because they have these films to release, then they have
yeah,
other deals in place, and it's really
yeah,
we're gonna see some kind of trickle down effect of what it means to shut down the production, not only from the distribution side, but you play it out for a year or 2 years, and it's gonna be hard to get some upstarts going, as we now know. Then too, some of the bigger players in OTT, Amazon, Netflix, whatever, those guys are going to basically be able to take over. And
yeah.
we're going to see a shift in the industry that way. So yeah, the big players can be moving, shaking, and even falling. Of course, Disney is kind of playing the game and playing it well. They, of course, hedged their bets for so many years, done this stuff. But there's rumors now that there's even going to be some more additional shifts and changes in the leadership there. I'm guessing it's because next week is the investor day, so they're playing well and putting some good marks on the horizon, that the investors know that they're playing the games, playing it well. But tell us what you've heard with your ear to the ground of what that reorganization might feel like, and who do you think's going to be the top?
Well, I think what we saw this week is, so they've broken the divisions into these content creators basically. And Peter Rice has sort of done his reorg. Dana Walden did her reorg this week. And there were significant layoffs, at least from Dana Walden's division, because she combined some divisions. So one wonders if, the studio side, be it Walt Disney Studios, Marvel, Lucasfilm, all those divisions, whether or not that's the next piece where the next reorg is going to happen. I don't really have any insight to say for sure of what it's going to look like, because I don't know for sure. Obviously that leadership has been wildly successful pre-pandemic. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot of changes. I will say that I've reached out to some of my Disney, some of colleagues at Disney, and asked them if they'd be interested to come talk about some of the, the things going on in the business, and they weren't comfortable.
Oh, really?
So I think that showcases there's definitely some worry in a lot of ways.
Sure.
On what's happening there, and uncertainty. Disney announced that they're going to lay off another 34,000, a total of 34,000 employees as of March. So they've already announced the 28,000. So there's additional 6 coming. Now, they said most of those are going to be in the parks division, but you have to, there's going to be some in the studio, and it looks, they just this week.
Well, if your buddies are kind of giving us early warning signs of like, hey, they don't want to come be on the show and talk about things, there must be some sense that the freedom within the walls, or the security within the walls, aren't really there, and they have to kind of play. With these layoffs, do you think that the Fox folks are the ones that are most concerned? Because if I remember right from things you've said, like a lot of Fox contracts really were just carried over. They weren't really negotiated. So there's probably a lot of people wondering, they're coming to terms on their contract. And
so, just to give the viewers a little background in story, typically how studio contracts work is you sign it's a 4-year contract, but it's a 2-year guarantee with a 2-year option. So what that means is, when you sign your deal, you're guaranteed 2 years of employment. And then the studio has the option to pick up the additional 2 years. So what happened with a lot of people who were at Fox, and there have been layoffs where some of the Fox people were ultimately let go. What they would basically did is they just carried over a lot of them. They didn't renegotiate their contracts. They didn't re-up them. They just basically said, okay, we're going to bring you over to the Disney side, but your contract's going to remain the same. Now, what's happening is a lot of those contracts are coming up. So they've already, their options have already been exercised. So they've been picked up. But now the 4 years is up, and some of them are just being let go.
Gosh,
We're not going to re-up your contract.
What a constraint.
As far as I know, they're not obligated to give you any sort of severance because your contract's just up.
Yeah, right.
So that saves them money in their end.
So it's not technically a layoff or a buyout. It's just the contract expires and they're finished with it. And that might have been some of the timing that they chose in bringing people on and holding them. It was to get some work out of people. They have to pay them anyway, get the work out of people, and then just let it expire. And coming to this December deadline, as a contract player, as you know, like you're always have nerves around your contracts. Wondering at what the deal is going to be, updating them, kind of making sure that have some security. I'm going to guess that's going to have some effect on the players inside, just like how bold they want to be, what kind of risks they want to take. So you have risk adverse people in a risk adverse environment who are not going to be pushing the creative envelope in any way. We might see a little blah kind of output for a little while.
Just from the folks that I've talked to over the last few months, it's really brutal out there right now. It's in the industry itself is just brutal. It's just every week there's more news of layoffs, and there's only so many jobs for the streamers to go around. And, everyone's wondering like, where does this end? And listen, the studios were always bloated. They always had more people than they really needed, but the cash was flowing in. They never felt the need to really, they trimmed along the edges.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what we're seeing is just changes that were just put off and put off and pput off. And the pandemic has just sort of forced the decisions to finally be made. And some very hard choices are going to have to be made over the course of the next few months. And, as I've been talking about, I really don't see how, if you're going to have a content creating operation, how they control marketing too. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a cost savings at all. So, there's probably going to be more consolation in terms of the marketing side, as we've been talking about. What happens to the distribution guys? All those guys that have the relationships with the exhibitors, who knows what exhibitors are going to be existing in 6-7 months?
Well, that's almost my concern is that if you're out there headhunting and trying to figure out where you're going to do savings, and you don't look at distribution and exhibition taking place for another 12 months, you might be pretty short-sighted and get rid of some key players in the high-priced key players in that field. And then when it comes back, it's going to be a slow growth coming back into that field too. Or just lean heavier and heavier on OTT, and it changes what distribution really means, or exhibition really means in the future. As I'm getting put a bookmark on this, we're predicting that exhibition is going to be different from early on when we started doing this live stream. We recognized that the Paramount decree, when that thing was removed, it was a play for studios to do something different with exhibition. And Disney and possibly Warner Brothers are playing that game. They're actually pulling out, possibly strategically doing some damage to exhibition, so they have a stronger field to play with when they want to do some acquisition themselves in the future. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but the big money guys and the Wall Street players are definitely doing that, where Universal is playing on the other side and making sure that the current exhibitors are their friends.
I think they're playing the bet that they think exhibition is going to come back in some form. And let's not forget, Universal is also the other company aside from Disney that owns parks. So they have that deep depth of experience in terms of creating a very welcoming customer experience, which I think is going to come into play when we start looking about bringing people back into the theaters. It's going to have to be more than just the movie. You can't just say so-and-so movie is going to be in your local theater, go see it. You're going to need to do more to entice people back, because it's going to have been so long since they were in a theater. They're not going to necessarily be jumping head over heels to go back to the same experience that they had pre-pandemic. So there's definitely going to be an opportunity for some real reinvention from sort of the exhibition side. Much like there was in the last pandemic and during the Spanish flu, there was a reinvention in terms of the movie industry then too, and that's when I believe the studios started buying theaters. So we could see the same thing now, like where studios start buying theaters again and owning the experience from script to screen, if you will. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, and we'll see how it all.
Well, it's so interesting because digitally, that's what's happening. That's what OTT is that there is no middle player between the studio and the viewer, right? Because the Disney Plus environment, for example, or say Discovery Plus environment, whatever Plus environment you want to be on, they're owning the content creation, distribution, and exhibition. Everything short of installing the sound system in your house is owned by them, and to do that in the physical form too. We're looking at a new type of monopoly, hidden and different way of monopolizing. But clearly there's enough players out there with cash that it'll fight for a little while. All right. Well, before we wrap up this episode, we should officially say goodbye to this short-lived, short form, short life, little OTT scene called Quibi. Quibi officially closes shops. As we close this episode, we should almost have music of like sha-na-na-na, goodbye. Like we should just be like, bye Quibi. Thanks for the
nice try. I mean, there's not much to say. It was a wild risk. I honestly don't believe the pandemic is solely to blame. I don't think the idea of 10-minute shows was ever viable on a small screen, unless you're going to do something like a TikTok where it's quick and you can watch it and move on. So I don't really think the format itself was ever going to be a success. I mean, that's easy to say now.
Yeah, I was gonna say like.
I mean, I'm not saying
it's totally done. I was right.
Hey, look at me! I was smart. Hindsight's always 20/20. I think they always had an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just one of those things where it just didn't work, and hopefully it inspires some sort of new forum that we can look to in the future. So
as a person that studies career, though, I'm curious. I'm just going to throw out there. I don't want him to get frustrated or whatever, but I almost wonder, like, is this the end of the Katzenberg era also? Like his knowledge, his understanding, his influence, because
no, I mean, I don't, listen, I don't know what he's going to do next. I mean, he's obscenely wealthy, so he'll do something.
Sure. But does his name mean anything anymore? Like,
I mean, honestly, I think this is it's definitely a blow to sort of like if Jeffrey Katzenberg walks in the room. I mean, 10 years ago, he walked in the room stopped. Now I don't necessarily think that's going to happen as much because of this. And DreamWorks Animation had a very uneven tenure under his watch. So I think he's had two back-to-back sort of experiences that sort of make you wonder whether or not he really is still at the forefront of the industry as a whole. Listen, I as a sort of Gen Xer who's been begging these baby boomers to get the hell out of the way and let some new leadership come into the studios, this doesn't necessarily break my heart. I'll be honest. Like, I think it's time that these guys, I mean, they've had wonderful, great runs, but they need to get the hell off the seat and let some other people take over.
Well, there's this apocryphal story of a Steve Jobs, Jeffrey Katzenberg conversation when back in the day where Jobs was simply just trying to sell a computer and an operating system to any animation company he could. It was created by the Pixar group, but he was just selling the computer and software. And Katzenberg had told Steve Jobs, hey, listen, no one does animation unless I say they do animation. And it wasn't soon after that Toy Story was launched and Katzenberg was out at Disney. Just 20 years later, here we have Disney, we have Apple Plus. Sure. Yeah, we have Apple Plus like still haunting Katzenberg, who's trying to get back into the game of like, listen, when I say something happens, like Jeffrey, I think your days are done, man. I think that era is finished, and there are new players.
Great run. He's got a great wall of trophies to look at and be proud of. But at the same time, it's like at a certain time, it's time to step aside and let the next group take the wheel.
Yeah, and which our industry is very brutal to people in career, especially when it comes to how long you can be viable and last. So those who do have a long run is great.
I think the key is to always remember, no matter where you are, the seat you're sitting in, you're just renting it. You're not owning it. You're going to get booted at some point.
Yeah.
So you either go out on a high or you go out on a low. So it's up to you, just as long as you accept the fact that you're not going to be in that seat forever.
Which is why I have my day job at RevThink, because I want the creative entrepreneur to recognize the power of the seat they're sitting in and the importance of taking care of it while they're there.
Yep, exactly.
All right, my friend. Well, happy Friday to you. Thanks again for coming together and pulling this for us. I always
great to be back.
And your friends at Disney, blessings to them. Hopefully it does end well for them.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope everybody gets to. I mean, you don't want to be in a job hunt in this market. Let me tell you, it's just not enjoyable. So I hope they're able to hold on a little while longer until things start to heat up again.
And then next week will be the day after the Disney Investor Day. So
yes, December 10th is Investor Day. So we'll have a lot more information on how this new division that they created, which left a lot of unanswered questions, hopefully they'll all be answered.
And then Robin, if you're out there, we're going to hunt you down and we want to hear some of what you think of some of this Disney stuff. So we'll get you back on the show.
Yep, for sure.
As always, Lydia, thank you for your help and the Go Social team. I hope you are all doing well and on the east side of the world and taking care of things. We appreciate you so much. And as always, thank you for watching. We at RevThink, Keith, myself, Hollywood Breaks, we appreciate you being part of what we're doing. If you like what you see, you want to have information, please feel free to reach out to us in our comments. Hit us out directly with a direct message. Subscribe to our channel. You know the game. Just do whatever it takes to get a hold of us because we're in this for you and you're in this for us. So let's do this together. Until next Friday, we'll see you later and take care.
And see.